Hello and welcome to Video Game Saga's profile segment where we interview modern and classic gaming celebrities. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with music composer Mr. Tommy Tallarico. Mr. Tallarico has composed award-winning music for video games such as Earthworm Jim, Disney's Aladdin, Metroid Prime, Advent Rising, and many more. Mr. Tallarico is the CEO of Video Games Live and is the founder of the Game Audio Network Guild. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Tallarico. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Damn, I sound busy.
Very busy. Well, yeah.
Thanks for having me, and please call me Tommy.
You got it, Tommy. Yes, thank you for joining us. It's definitely been a pleasure. I've been following your work for quite some time. Since Virgin Interactive, Electric Playground, you name it. So this is definitely an honor to have you on the show with us.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's start things off with our first question. Can you tell us how you got started in the industry and where it has taken you over the years?
Yeah, my two greatest loves growing up were always video games and music. In fact, but I never thought to put the two together because, in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up, there was no such thing as a video game composer. But when I was 10 years old, I used to record all my favorite video game music on cassette tape, and I'd take my player down to the local arcade and record all the sounds and bring it home and record my Intellivision and my Atari and my Apple and my Commodore, and I'd used to splice all the music together and invite the neighborhood kids over and put in video games on my television and play back the tape and pretend like I was playing air guitar, and I'd charge them. So I guess those were the first video game concerts. But who knew 30 years later I'd be doing it on the big stage, but with a symphony behind us. But when I turned 21, I grew up on the East Coast in Massachusetts, and when I turned 21, I got in my car, left my family crying on the doorstep, and drove out to California all by myself.
Oh, wow.
No money, no job, no place to stay, no friends, nothing. And the first day I got in California, the only thing I really knew was Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up a newspaper, and I got a job selling keyboards at Guitar Center. And they told me, you start tomorrow. So I went down there the next day. Now, I was literally, the first couple of weeks I was in California, I was homeless. I was sleeping under a pier at Huntington Beach. And anyway, I went down to the job for the first day, and I was wearing a TurboGrafx 16 T-shirt, which back then nobody had video game T-shirts. Now you can get them at freaking Walmart,
Absolutely.
But in 1990, no one had video game T-shirts, So the first person who walked in on my first day of work there saw my T-shirt, and he happened to be a producer at Virgin, and he saw my shirt. We sparked up a conversation, and he hired me there on the spot. And so I was in California 3 days, and I was in the video game industry. And that was over 19 years ago. I've been doing it ever since. And so I was hired as a games tester, and but I would bug the vice president of the company every day. I said, "Look, whenever you need music, just let me know, and I'll learn it, and I'll do it for free. And if you don't like it, you don't have to use it." Because we didn't have a music person because the company was so new. And the first opportunity I got was a brand new game they were working on called Prince of Persia, original Prince of Persia, and so I did the job and got a lot of great reviews and accolades, and they made me the full-time music guy.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. So when you went on it at Virgin, was it pretty intimidating at first? Was it kind of your first like big job that you had taken on?
Yeah. I wouldn't call it intimidating though. I was in like heaven,
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't intimidating to me only because I was just on cloud nine. I mean,
I bet.
Got hired there. I'm like, man, this California place is all right. What a dream come true. And people are paying me $6 an hour to play video games and tell them what's wrong with them. I could die happy now. So I would have been content with just doing that for the rest of my life. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so no, and the reason I say it wasn't intimidating is because everything was changing so rapidly, especially back then. When I first got in, we were, the NES was in, just about on its, on its downward spiral because the Super Nintendo was
Hmm.
to come out, and the Genesis had just come out, and so we were traveling into the 16-bit era, and so everything was always changing. So it wasn't really, the technology wasn't really intimidating, only because I would sit down with programmers and learn, kind of, how to do music, and what it was all about, and it was always changing. So it was like, well, hey Tommy, what do you think? How do you think we should write this technology, and get the music in there to sound good and stuff? So it was kind of cool.
Absolutely. That's great that they kind of consulted with you on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. What inspired you to start playing instruments and composing video game soundtracks? I know we kind of just touched upon it.
Yeah, well, I've been my parents were a product of the '50s, so I kind of grew up listening to Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, and I have a very famous cousin, who's the lead singer of Aerosmith, Steven Tyler.
Hmm.
His real name is Steven Tallarico,
Nice.
and so I kind of grew up, listening to rock and roll and Aerosmith and Pink Floyd and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and later on Van Halen and the Police, and always, Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis and stuff. So when I was 3 years old, I started playing the piano, and I was, by the time I was five, I was kind of banging out Great Balls of Fire and things like that, and Jailhouse Rock. Um, but I never learned how to, I never went to school for music. I always just learned to play it by ear. And then when I was about 10 years old, I heard the music for Rocky, the movie Rocky,
Oh, my favorite movies.
76. Yeah, 1976. I was 9 years old, and then also,
Bill Conti.
yep, Bill Conti, and then a year later, in 1977, music to Star Wars, John Williams, and it was really when I heard those things, that's when I kind of knew, like, wow, what is that? That's what I want to do. Um, and so that kind of got me interested in symphonic music and orchestras. And then from listening to John Williams and Bill
Mm.
Conti and reading up about them, and listening to interviews and seeing them and stuff, you find that, that their inspirations were the masters, Beethoven, Mozart, and those cats. So,
Absolutely.
so that then, turned me on to Mozart and Beethoven. And when I heard Beethoven, it was all over.
Hmm.
It was like, that's, this is what I want to do with my life, is write music like that, and produce music, all sorts of music, whether it's rock and roll or orchestral or techno electronica, whatever, combining it all. And so it was because of pop culture. It was because of films that got me interested in music and composing and symphonies and orchestras. And the interesting thing is, 30 years later, the same effect that films had on me in the '70s.
Hmm.
The same thing is happening with our youth today with video games. And so, when we play video games live, we'll get tons of letters after a show from people saying, wow, I want to start learning how to play the violin. So I want to start taking violin lessons so I can start to learn the music to Halo and Final Fantasy. So, um, it's cool to see pop culture having a cultural effect on society in a positive way. I mean, the reason I created Video Games Live was I wanted to prove to the world how culturally significant and artistic video games have become, and I wanted to create a show for everybody, not just for hardcore gamers. I know they'll show up, right? But I want, and that's why it's so important that we take the visuals and the synchronized video and the rock and roll lighting and the stage show production, the interactive elements with the crowd and the special effects and the pre-show festival, and kind of put it all together as a celebration of the video game industry. It's so everyone can follow along. You don't have to know a darn thing about video games to come out to Video Games Live, listen
Absolutely.
to the, see the show, listen to the show, and have a greater appreciation for what video games are.
Absolutely. I agree.